Hello and welcome to the Introduction to Ecology video. This video is going to discuss ecosystems, how they're organized, and then discuss the basics of energy and how that determines various parts of an ecosystem and how everything works together. So we're going to look at producers and consumers because that is how energy flows, and then how energy and nutrients flow through that actual ecosystem. But first off, we want to discuss the organization so you can understand the rest of the discussion. So ecosystems, the environment is organized into different levels. The biggest level is known as a biosphere, and that's the outer layer of the earth and the atmosphere. Then the next level are ecosystems. And ecosystems is just an area of land of living and non-living things, also known as biotic and abiotic, and their interactions within an ecosystem. Then the next smaller level are known as communities, and communities are just the biotic or living things in an area. They can be a group of different species, or all the same species. Usually it is a whole bunch of different species, and there are different types of interactions. And then the next level is population, and that is all of one species in the area. So the population of Natick High School, the human population of Natick High School would be all of the humans living in the building. And then the next level is just the individual. It's just one organism. So as you go from individual up to biosphere, you're getting bigger and bigger, and vice versa. So that is how the environment is organized into layers. And it's very important because there are different interactions and different methods of studying each type. So if you look at the big picture, you can see how they grow and grow and grow from the individual up through to the biosphere. So now how much energy actually is there in, say, an ecosystem is based on the producers. And the producers are very important because those are the ones that are able to take the sun's energy or any inorganic energy and make it into usable energy for the rest of the organisms. And the primary productivity is how fast organic material is made by the producers. So we eat organic material. That's how we get energy. But producers are able to take the sun and make our food. So it determines the amount of energy that's available for everything in that ecosystem. It's all determined by the producers. And it's super important because energy flows from those producers to what is known as consumers. And then it kind of goes back. So these are all very important because if you don't have enough energy, then you're not going to have any organisms living there because every organism characteristic of a living thing uses energy. So if you don't have enough, then it's not going to function properly. Now, how we actually, before we get into how it specifically flows and all of that, I'm going to discuss the names of the different organisms, and it's basically based off of how they obtain energy. So first off, we have producers, also known as autotrophs, and these are organisms that can make their own food. And there are phototrophs and chemotrophs. The next are your consumers, also known as heterotrophs. And these are herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, and detritivores. These basically need to eat their food. They cannot make their own. And then lastly, there are decomposers. These are organisms that actually break down dead and decaying material and help to recycle. So those are very important because if you actually look at a food chain or food pyramid or the energy flow, you'll notice that only 10% of the energy moves on to the next energy level. So 90% of energy is lost, and that makes really short food chains. So if you look at these food chains, you'll notice it starts with the sun on the left, then it goes to the producers. The producers are then eaten by what's known as the primary consumers, often the herbivores. They can also be omnivores. And then the primary consumers are eaten by the secondary consumers, which is kind of makes sense. Primary is first, secondary is second consumer, and they get the energy from that primary consumer or the rabbit, and then the decomposers kind of bring everything back. And you could actually draw an arrow from the decomposer back to the producer because they do recycle some of that energy. But at each energy, as the energy pyramid to the right shows, is lost, and a lot is lost. So you start off with, say, 1,000 kilocalories at the producer level. Each level you only get 10%. So only in 4 levels you only have one left. So it's kind of like if you're getting paid, if you've ever noticed, there are taxes taken out. So say you're supposed to get $100. If 90% of that was taken out, all you'd get would be $10. That wouldn't be very much. So you'd have to work really hard to make more than $100 because you'd need actually 10, more than 10. So it's the same idea with eating. If you move further up the food chain, you end up having to eat more because you can get less out of your food, less energy out of your food. And this is, so that's how your energy flows. And as you're eating and energy is flowing, the nutrients also follow. So you have very important nutrients: the water, the carbon, phosphorus, and nitrogen. And these will be discussed and looked at closer later on. But the nutrient cycle, as you see just quickly, follows the basic energy cycle as well, and goes from the producer to the consumers and then to the decomposers and to the soil. So they just do not have the ultimate sun as the energy source, whereas that is the energy cycle, the nutrient cycle, just use the soil. So the important part of the ecosystems in general are the organization of the levels and how things cycle through every part of your ecosystem, because this helps you maintain your stable environment.